Welcome to Magic Canopy Podcast. Today with us is Elliott Masie. He has been in the learning development space for decades, and he was actually one of the few who in the boardroom where the word e-learning was invented. And fast forward, he has been producing shows, and now he is again leading us on the exploration of how AI could impact learning development and how the ability to play, to activate our childlike sense of curiosity, can help us navigate the muddy yet exciting waters of AI and skill development. So let's wait no further and let's welcome Elliott Masie. Yeah.
I've been in the world of learning for literally 52 years. I'm the young age of 73. And during that time, I helped start the computer training industry. I was involved in the early days of learning technology. And then when the internet came about, I was one of the people who thought, e-learning, what if we used the internet for that? And since then, I've continued to work together with chief learning officers for corporate learning. And in the last about year and a half, I've also been focusing on what is this AI all about and what might that do for learning. And then about 20 years ago, I added a second part to my career and I became a Broadway producer. And I'm a Tony nominated producer of about 45 shows, including Kinky Boots and Anastasia and Mrs. Doubtfire. And they fit together because they're all about storytelling.
That actually taps into the second question, like why do you kind of from innovation to like show production, and you mentioned like storytelling. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Like how is that related to learning?
Well, it's interesting, and it's actually sometimes you do one thing and it impacts the second, and the second thing comes back to impact the first. So I started off in the view that I I understood learning and I understood how to produce learning events. I did 29 national and global conferences, and I said, I bet that would be similar in the world of Broadway. And sure enough, I became a producer. Um, and I think what I didn't realize at the time is the two things had in common were stories. And ironically, it's now come back to impact my view of learning. I actually believe at the end of the day, the beginning of the day, the average individual doesn't want to go to a class. Okay. They don't want to be in a structured program with an instructor. You know what they want? They want a story that helps them understand, solve, fix, or do something. That's why when something breaks, we're less likely to take a course. We're more likely to go onto YouTube or somewhere and find somebody who has a short video about that. Well, I actually think storytelling is at the heart of how we learn, how we collaborate, how we run communities, hopefully, how we even fix the problems in our lives and in the world. And so to me, they're very connected. And they also have you've got to turn the audience on. If you're on Broadway and there's a song and people aren't interested, they'll start to sleep in their seats. And we've all been in classrooms where the same thing happens. So I think it's not just storytelling, it's engagement, excitement, and getting at what people need. That's my connection.
I like that. And also, people, some of our audience will say, well, can you learn like operation like as a surgeon and watching a YouTube video? People usually use that example. And I was like, you need to watch a video to get you all excited and pumped and engaged. Right. And then the skill comes next and you can practice it, although you want.
Anything you learn, we're using a mixture of things. I've worked with hospitals on doctor training. Guess what doctor training is? You study the book, you go to a class, you look at it. But do you know when they do most of their learning? Walking around with a senior physician, visiting patients, and hearing the story from the patient what's wrong, and from other doctors what are they doing. I think stories are organic. It's what we have as humans. It's a species element. I'm on a mission now to make sure that more of our learning really does engage the power of exciting storytelling. And you're right, it doesn't have to be entertaining. It can be a very technical term, a medical term, a data processing term. When our car is flat we have to get the tire off, we don't necessarily want dancing people showing us how to do it. But we also don't want to take a 4-hour class on the history of tires. So it's making stories more personalized and targeted, whether it's on Broadway, whether it's with your family on New Year's, or whether you're learning something online or from a mentor.
Fabulous. I'm really grateful that we can hear that from you, because you are the person who's walking the pathways in two worlds, and it's very exciting. And then we're talking about like expedite and personalized, so that gets me very interesting when we are talking about this AI hype. And you are traveling the world, seeing everything that's happening. So how can you give us like a big picture of how has the hype, the innovation, the excitement, the technology, the advancement of AI is evolving in the current space?
It's real. AI is there. And to be very honest, it's not as new as people make it. If you went on to LinkedIn or Facebook or Amazon, or if you were in Baidu or, Alibaba, in any kind of system, for years, we've used what we're now calling AI, which is how do we use the data from individuals to make good predictive and generate great realities. But about a year and 3 months ago, wow, suddenly generative AI came out. And I have never, literally in 52 years in the field, seen the world light up with a combination of excitement and threat. Excitement because it's really cool, and a threat. There goes my job. There goes a process. I actually think, and this is a big part of my mission, I'm not an AI super fan. I'm not a fanboy of AI. I'm intrigued by AI. I'm intrigued by what it could do, and I'm also intrigued by what it can't do. I recently have a friend, a billionaire, who's 86, and he wanted to understand AI. And so I had AI type and generate a song about him. And sure enough, it was a good song. It had a lot of elements in that. And then he said, it left out my two crises in life, because whoever generated the generation thing said, let's put positive things about people into a song. Well, but it doesn't really tell his story in the right way. I think the way to think about AI now, and for those of you who are old enough, I was at the time, there was a space age element where Russians and then the United States and then other countries put people into space. And first we put monkeys in, and then we put people in, and someday we got to the moon. This is what we are in, this kind of an innovative era. What worries me the most, are every vendor of technology has now decided to call their current or about to be released system AI. We in the world of analysts call it AI washing. I literally got a note the other day about a new emerging AI pillow where you sleep on the pillow and somehow AI tells you at the end of the day whether or not like you snored or you were restless. Well, guess what? That wasn't AI, but they decided to wash it with AI. I actually think we need to all be explorers, experimenters. Every day I look at something new. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And it's going to probably be a 5 to 10 year process where AI evolves. And I'll make you a little prediction. We're going to stop using that phrase, AI. So if you go back a little bit in time, the internet came out. And I remember learning HTML. HTML was the underlying code, but we weren't going to like coffee shops and having, well, HTML is really cool. No, what we said is we can get something on the screen, and look what it's changed. My phone lets me check my airline reservation for later. That was 12 years ago. So we got to strap our seatbelts on. AI will be part of our technology and our process, and I think at some point we're going to stop using AI. People don't say, I was online and HTML or CSS gave me a good screen. No. We accept it and it will integrate. And we have to make ethical, we have to make personnel, and we have to make effectiveness decisions along the way.
Mm-hmm. I see. And then is there so if we don't call AI, what would that? I know you were in the room when the terminology e-learning
Yeah,
was invented. So
yeah.
what would be
I don't know. This is why, being an innovator isn't having the answer. It's sometimes authentically saying, I don't know. I have to I'm giving a keynote speech for thousands of human resource people at the SHRM conference in a couple of months. And they asked what my title would be. And initially they put AI. I said, no, put the word smart tech in there. And the only reason I did it is I wanted to look at the wider range of, facial recognition, robotics, predictive data, and the like. So I don't know. And I'm not the right one to name it. My guess is that, there's going to be a 24-year-old programmer in Singapore who's doing something, and she's going to say X, and maybe that will be what we will call it. But ultimately, it will just be part of our world rather than this other. And that word artificial scares me because it sounds threatening in that. I think every technology has good uses, bad uses, poor uses, and changing uses. But I may be wrong. That's just a prediction that AI, not so much hype, but AI, Taylor Swift fever, will be shorter lived. Although I think Taylor will be around longer than our use of the term AI will be. Yeah.
love to?
Yeah.
Great. So is there any are there any case studies where because you also mentioned in our previous conversation that when we're really talking about AI, the real impact is really how AI can potentially not only change our behaviors, but like rapid skill development. So
Yeah. Yeah.
have you seen any cases
I do, and I'm going
that's
to give a
happened?
technical one, but maybe it's helpful because we often think about AI is going to replace the customer service person, or we're not going to have writers of instruction. I'll give you an interesting one, and that's the person who's a programmer who writes code. I have a good friend, Bob Frankston. I went to high school with Bob. Bob, along with Dan Bricklin, invented the spreadsheet. They came out literally decades ago with VisiCal. But Bob has continued to be a programmer his whole life. And I had an opportunity to chat with Bob, and I said, how has AI changed what you do? And he said, when I program, and he programs in a variety of languages, Python, CSS, he said, I have my programming screen in front of me, and to the left, I have my AI. And what I do is it's like having somebody next door to me, sometimes who teaches me, sometimes who gives me feedback, and sometimes who competes with me. So he'll go over here and he'll say, build me an application on X. But meanwhile, he will have done one over here and he'll say, wow, that one's better. Or he'll say, I did this and give it to that and it's improved. I had an opportunity to be together with some people from the United States Marine Corps. And they were there and they were talking about how they're going to use AI, how they're starting to. They decided they want to use it for personalization. I mean, how many times have you gone to a class or a briefing and the person says, here's what we're going to talk about. And the first 5 items you know already, and the
Mm.
bottom 4 items you have no desire to know, but
Yeah,
you've got to
completely.
sit through a 3-hour program. Well, they're saying we want to get to where every person gets a curriculum for one. Imagine
Mm.
that, a curriculum for one. They come in and they go, Sonia, here's what you're going to learn today. Elliott, here's what you're going to learn tomorrow. The other place where AI is playing a pretty significant role, and it's not new, we've just made it more automated and in front of us, are chatbots.
Mm.
So I had somebody try to hack into me, uh, and I fell for it. I ended up, I thought they were going to redirect a package that I had, and they asked me if I would give a $1 verification who I was. And it was early in the morning, and I put it in, and suddenly I realized I had just put my credit card into something, which wasn't, they pretended to be UPS, they weren't. So I literally got right online to my American Express. I thought I'd be talking to a person. I got a chatbot instead, and it literally in about 95 seconds walked me through that, canceled my card, issued a new one for me. And by the way, I never talked to a human being in that process. Now, I'm not trying to get that human being fired, but guess what? I got safely out of being hacked faster because I
Mm.
could do that interactively. And this is where we're seeing the growth. And we did chatbots before AI. AI makes it more interesting. I also want to make a little bit of a prediction, okay? And you make predictions, and sometimes you're wrong. Two things.
Hypotheses.
Yeah, well, two things. Number one, what we now do when we do a Google search or a Bing search is we get a list. Boom, 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 boom. And what's interesting about the research is nobody goes to page 3. Some of the best stuff is on page 3. In fact, nobody generally goes below halfway down the screen. You're going to see these different search engines. When you now search, they're going to give you first the option and then eventually, primarily, an AI summary of what's there. And I think that's going to be an interesting process because a lot of
Mm.
times we pick one, we don't synthesize all of it. But the second thing that's going to happen probably in the next 6 to 8 months, I'm betting it might be Bard or now Gemini from Google. It may be ChatGPT. It may be Microsoft's use of that with Copilot, or even stay tuned for what Apple does and what Amazon does. It's going to give us the opportunity, think about this, where you could type or say, I want to learn about the best way of moving my code from this system to another system. Show me some teaching models. And it literally would say, you could watch a video, you could read a PDF. Here, in fact, you could talk to this person in Boston online right now. So what we're going to start to see is that our search is going to become more learning optimized. And you're not going to have to go out and buy it because what we found is everybody wants to learn every day something. Something breaks, they want to fix it, something they want to do. So we're going to start to see that built into it. And I think every day now I'm getting a note of how AI, they're experimenting and adding it to different parts of the workplace and the workforce.
This is a super exciting time. And when we're kind of using the AI to kind of whether optimize search engine, whether develop the one curriculum that best fit for you at this moment, taking you from point A to point B, are there any potential big gaps that you're seeing for like learning development leaders,
Yeah.
designers, and people who are in the ecosystem for learning?
We've got to be good at differentiating something. Uh, what AI is very good at doing is giving us data from a big pool that they've created or scraped or copied. And they're very good at giving it to us in a format that looks attractive. So I can type in, if you ever want to do it, you can write a song about Elliott Masie's career in learning in Broadway. And it literally will give me a wonderful sounding song. It rhymes and I can almost start to sing it. But that doesn't mean it's accurate. So what we have to learn to do is to differentiate that it looks good, the form is good, but is it accurate? Was it from the right set of data? We even have to ask the question, is it biased? Does it primarily written by people of one gender or one part of the world or who have a different approach to thinking about elements? And so we're in the early stages of is it biased? And then the other piece, which I'm getting more and more excited about, is can it be incrementally improved? So yesterday I gave a session. I teach occasionally at a PhD program at University of Pennsylvania for rising chief learning officers, and I wanted a graphic for it. So I asked ChatGPT to give me a graphic, and then I looked at it, and all of the key people were men there. So I said, change it and have half of them women, and of the two leads, have one of them be a person of color. And I got it, but they spelled Pennsylvania wrong. I said, fix Pennsylvania. Well, it was this interaction between me as a requester and that as an output. And we're going to, I think, have to learn how do we adjust what AI does? Or here's the other side. How does AI improve what I do? So when I now write a blog post or even a press release, I give it to AI and I say, put in bold what you think I ought to fix, make better, or eliminate. And, I write it, it improves it, and sometimes I argue with it because I disagree about some elements of that. But you gotta have the guts to disagree with AI and be happy when it disagrees with you, But you're still in charge for the most part. You're still in charge.
Yeah, I think by the end of this whole experimentation, everybody will become a better communicator and a better supervisor and collaborator here. That gets me kind of into the next question is, with all these hypes and potential new development and potential risks, how do we really measure the impact of AI on, let's say, skill development or
Yeah.
speech skills, something like that? How do you, are there any way
Well,
to measure?
I wish there were a simple way, but life is complex, and so measuring is as complex as life is. I use an interesting term, and I actually learned it from some friends who worked in the military, which is the word readiness. I love the word
Readiness.
readiness. So let's say I decide, well, I really want to kind of learn because I'm going to be going to Thailand to give a speech in July. I want to learn 20 phrases in Thai that I could use at a restaurant or the like. Now, you could say, did Elliott get an A, a B, a C, or a D? Well, that's irrelevant. I'm not looking for a grade. I'm looking for readiness, meaning could they give me 4 or 5 situations? And yes, I at least have the ability to be honorable and to use a little bit of that language in that sense. So I think what we have to think about is measuring is readiness. Are they ready to do the task? Are they ready to do the task with confidence? Are they ready to do the task with support? And sometimes the most interesting, are they ready to now learn how to do the task better or more? And there are ways of measuring that. I think ultimately in learning, we always have to measure it not did the person learn, but can they now perform? And that's where skills come in. Can I perform this? Because in some cases, I have a friend and she's in the process of studying English, and she comes from another country, and she's trying to get her English at a level that is high enough. Ironically, she doesn't always do well on that test, the English test. But if you spoke with her, she's wonderful in that sense. So we've got to make sure that our measure really measures the reality, not the academic or the conceptual side of that. I'll give you one other piece I'll slip in there. I think you don't really know something until you can safely fail at doing it. Safely fail at doing it. And that's why, I'm getting on an airplane today to go to Florida. And hopefully the pilot is at the door when I come in, and I'll say, hello, pilot. And then I'll ask him and say, I'm looking for, and I'll say, when was the last time you were in a simulator? And they'll look at me, and I say, one of those flight simulators. And if they say, oh, a year ago or a year and a half, and if they said, I haven't been in 4 years, I say, oh, I think I left my suitcase there. I'll be back and I'll get off the airplane. Why? I don't want a pilot flying my airplane that I'm on unless they've had an opportunity to safely fail in a simulation. So I think part of what learning and skill development is the ability to do it, readiness. But at some point, if we can we let them safely fail at it? Because that's when you go, okay, now I understand. I don't now I know why I'm not fully ready yet. So I'm a big believer in simulation and practice and feedback along the way.
When you're first talking about like learn and develop and fail safely, that gets me interested. Like, what role does kind of curiosity play, like childlike curiosity play in the process of skill development, leveraging all sorts of like technology?
Well, you knew a word that would get me way excited, even more than the phrase AI or Broadway. I think curiosity is the most powerful human force in the world. I'll put myself on the line here. I actually believe, unless somebody's going to punish you, that nobody learns anything without curiosity. Without curiosity. I mean, we've always been in a course where somebody says, now let me explain the four levels by which we can extract the derivative of that. And you're there going, if I'm not curious, I'm not learning. Even if I hear it, even if I write the notes, it doesn't stick inside of me. And I actually think that curiosity starts as a child. I think we're very blessed when our family was curious or they allowed us to be curious. We're very blessed if our teachers were that, or if relatives, or when we go to work, that we're working with somebody who honors our curiosity and the like. So I think it's really important. Ironically, and I'll push it here. It's why storytelling is important, because stories are all about responding to your own curiosity about it. So I think it's a very powerful thing. I don't think we in the learning field have understood the role that curiosity plays, because you've probably gone to these lectures where somebody went to a book to open up with a joke, like they tell this joke. Uh, you know, it generally isn't something the audience loves in that sense. But have you ever gone to a speech or a lecture or a TED talk where somebody says, take a moment and think about what you really want to do if you had a year off? Suddenly that whole audience starts imagining that, and their curiosity kicks in. So it's an interesting element to accept and build curiosity as part of how we teach and how we design and how we make our learning culture one of curiosity.
I love that. And how would do you think, let's hypothesize here. Do you think when people are getting more curious and can fail safely, can learn as they wanted to learn, will they acquire skill development faster? Like, is that a possibility? Or maybe it's probably still take the same time, but they
Yeah.
learn more skills. Like, what? How do you?
I don't know. I mean,
Mm.
I'm hoping some of the work that you do explores this. No, I mean,
Oh,
it's
sorry.
interesting to be able to say we don't know,
Yeah.
because we are innovators. We are exploring things. For some people, curiosity is very powerful. It keeps them focused and it gets them in. But I have a colleague, and I would tell you his curiosity is distracting. Like, you're talking to him about something, and suddenly he gets curious about something totally different, and he shifts the conversation, and it distracts him. So I think this is a
Mm.
world we have to explore. We don't even have a language of curiosity. How do we describe, if you do an interview somebody for a job, to say, I really like candidate number two. They seem much more curious than candidate number one. But what does that mean? Are they
Mm.
divergent in their thinking? Are they easily distracted? So I think I'm looking forward to what work you and others
Mm.
do to really understand and leverage curiosity. Because I think, look, if you go online to shop, the company that's pitching you online is always going to try to find your curiosity. They're going to try to shape whatever they show you, which is personalization and targeting you. So I think we have to understand and explore curiosity a lot more. And I do think if we get it right, it will accelerate skill development, and it will accelerate people's confidence in the skills that they have.
I hope we can step into that future.
Yeah.
I'm really deep-heartedly hope
Yeah.
that's the future we're stepping in. With AI, maybe that's even more possible. Personalized curiosity and
Yeah.
learning.
Yeah. Hmm.
That's great. And so as we kind of move into the future, how would you kind of imagine we kind of talked a little bit about the future. So with the technology advances, the virtual realities, the AI, or smart tech, neural links, and all
Yeah.
that. So how would you, what's the future that you can see, that
Well,
you
you know,
wanted to see?
the future in a way is right in front of us. I mean, I'm now testing, not to make anybody jealous, but this is a $4,000 piece of research technology I bought from Apple. It's the Apple Vision Pro, and parts of it are great, parts of it aren't there yet. But is it brilliant? They're getting people like me to pay for their market research. But let's use this as one example of that. It has an ability to show truly immersive video. Now, I've played with VR for 25 years, and I've had the all the different VR pieces. What's different about this is that I put on a little clip that Apple Studios did of a visiting a rhino rehabilitation farm in South Africa. And it was beautiful. And suddenly the rhino came and it was like sitting there, their head was on my shoulder. And I loved it. And I showed it to some other people and they got a little scared and the like. But I think what we're going to start to see is enormously immersive video. And I think it's going to be immersive, A, by how it's shot, but then more importantly, if I move my head left to right, I can change it. It's also starting to look at my eyes to say, what's my emotional reaction to that? And so I imagine that we're going to have a way, and I don't think it'll always require heavy or expensive goggles. I think we're going to see ways it pops up on screens in front of us, but three-dimensional or 360, very immersive environments where it's like you're there. So we'll go back to, teaching that physician or that doctor to to be a better physician. Could we build a situation where they're right with a patient and the like, where simulation happens? I think that's going to be a part of the future. I also think we're going to figure out better ways of collaborating with people that are more real time and instant. And look, the pandemic got us to where we're doing what we do right now without a second thought. Okay,
Mm.
I know I have a little light. I'll set it up in my hotel room and we can tape this. 5 years ago, we wouldn't be thinking we could do that. But if we go forward, how do we end up having the most effective collaboration with people, whether they are
Mm.
our friends, our colleagues, our customers, our clients, our family? And I think we're going to figure out new and better ways of doing that. And to be very honest, I'm always struck. And people are doing some research right now. We've never been more connected, and I've never seen more people who are lonely. Who are lonely, and even though they're online and they got 400 friends that they're connected to, they're lonely, and that's sad to me. So I'm hoping we will find ways of using our technology and our culture to have people connect, and not just with people who are similar to them. I have friends who are, under 20, and I recently lost a friend who was 106 years old. So how do we make sure that our connections to people are very diverse in age,
Mm.
in nationality and perspective? And I'm hopeful for that. I think we'll see a lot of work in that. And keep your eye open even for, how our mobile phones are going to evolve, because most people aren't making a lot of phone calls on their phones. But I think we're going to see more ways in which they can become part of our personal ecosystem, uh, to keep us connected to knowledge and to people.
Are there any particular startups, innovators, thought leaders that you personally follow, so our audience can
Yeah.
continue their curious journey after our
Yeah.
conversation?
Yeah, I'm very involved with, and I'm a big follower of the work that SHRM is doing, which is the Society of Human Resource Management, and they literally have hundreds of thousands of members around the world. They've introduced the concept that what we ought to do is take AI, artificial intelligence, and add to it HI, human intelligence. And Johnny, who is the president and CEO of SHRM, has been doing that. So I'm following closely what they are doing. I'm looking a lot at what Sal Khan is doing from Khan Academy,
Mm,
and he's done most of his work with younger kids, younger students, but he's really looking at, once again, some of the issues that you talked about, curiosity. They have their own version that of AI called Conmingo,
great.
which is really aimed at a learning piece. I've been very intrigued, and I have some friends working in Vietnam. They don't even have a name for their startups yet, but they're looking at storytelling in that sense. And there are so many startups now. It's like gambling. If you were in a casino, you see 100 people walk in with smiles, and they all think they're going to walk out with a new car, and about 96 of them don't, but maybe they have a good time. And so I look at the venture world from a risk and gaming point of view. But
Mm,
I try to follow it. Just be careful. Um, when somebody tells you something that's brand new, even if it's Apple telling you this, they don't mention how heavy it is, or that
mm,
you really can't walk around with it because even though you can see. So be curious, ask them, does that work or not? But remember, everything right now is an experiment. So I view
mm.
that I'm going to learn something, even from tech that fails. I'm going to learn something about that. And I would also keep my eye on universities. I think some of the most interesting projects are done in some of the innovation labs, like MIT's Media Lab. There's a wonderful innovation lab in Hong Kong that I've been tracking. So I think keep your eye on universities. I think they're going to help us generate some of the next stage innovation.
That's wonderful. And I think so. In our today's conversation, we've covered a big space of like learning, innovation, AI. We talked about your personal story. We talked about how the landscape of AI technology has been evolving. What are some case studies that's talking about how to leverage AI to personalize learning, to expedite skill development? We talked about potential risks and challenges, but potential hopes for the future. We also talked about how potentially we can combine storytelling and curiosity together to help skill development and make it much faster and more effective and more fun.
Mhm.
And as we kind of conclude this part and move into the magic part, is there any particular information that we haven't covered that you wanted our audience to know?
No, just make sure you don't think of yourself as either a hyper fan or a hypercritic of the technology. It's evolving, and it's great to have some opinions. It's wonderful to have some concerns. The other day I saw somebody who asked for a summary from one of the AI pieces, and right in it were about 12 paragraphs I had written in a book. Now, I wasn't insulted. I thought it was kind of cool, but they didn't mention my name. Oh, it doesn't really matter in that. But we're at the early
I think it
stages.
matters.
Well, it does, but you know what? We're at the early stages, and I think we're
Experiment.
going to start to see. Maybe you'll be able to move your mouse or touch it, and it'll pop up where it's coming from. But be an explorer in this process, and don't think it's all done yet, or it's all great, or it's all bad. We're gonna evolve it, and globally we will evolve it, and jobs will change. Jobs will change. I don't think it means that everyone's going to lose their job, but I think it will change, just as computers change jobs, and other technologies change jobs, and telephones change jobs. We have to continually be looking at how tech will evolve what we do, how we work, and what the skills and roles are there.
Yeah, I think hopefully it's evolving the job and people get to do less repetitive tasks, less
Yeah.
boring tasks, and let their imagination, creativity, curiosity really be harnessed and empower what they are doing wherever they are, whatever they do.
Yep.
That would be my magic. So, Elliot, what was your kind of what did you enjoy really doing, creating when you were like 11 or even younger and time disappeared?
Well, I guess I was an early producer. We lived in a very small, poor neighborhood apartment, and I produced little theater pieces where people stood on top of the sofa, and I did shows in my home. And the other thing I did is I was a ham radio operator. Now, this is old time, way before the internet, but I literally needed to learn how to press the Morse code button, and I would talk to people around the world in that. So I was a pretty out there, and my parents would say disruptive innovator as a child. But those were the two things when I was about 11 years old.
That's excellent. I see some similarities between us. Um, so any particular challenges that you've experienced
A personal
growing
challenge.
up?
I was born with a very high top of my mouth. Medically, if it had been a little bit more, I would have had what's called a cleft palate. I would have had difficulty speaking. So my mom was the only person who could understand me till about age 4. But you know what? I luckily had a wonderful doctor who said, don't stop Elliot talking. He doesn't care whether anybody understands him. Let him talk. And as I got to be better, so I had this speech challenge, which I guess now, if I speak before 5,000 people at a conference, I'm grateful that the doctor told my mom, just let me talk in that sense. But that was probably one of the biggest challenges growing up. Plus, which the world is challenging. How do you, as a kid, watch a war on television or assassinations or stuff like that? And I think I was shaped by some of the news events as a kid as well.
Yeah, and I think for me, I just kind of try. I wish there's like a filter, like you can filter, like
Yeah.
personalize the news, like the news that really brings hope and happiness
Mhm.
to you, but also help you to kind of be aware. What is your magic after all
Well,
that?
I think
And
the
evolving.
yeah, I think the magic is to wake up every morning and decide it was going to be an adventure that day. I'm gonna have an adventure that day. So I woke up this morning. I said, "Oops, it's 6 o'clock. I got to go get a bagel, okay, or pretzel." So I walked outside and found a pretzel right by University of Pennsylvania, and I found some coffee, and then I have this adventure. I'm going to be interviewed by somebody, and it's going to be, I don't know exactly what we'll talk about. And then I've got to get to the airport, and I got to fly to Orlando. And so, do I bring my winter coat or with me? And then I'm going to get to meet people like Deepak Chopra and Jeff Bezos from Amazon. And wow, I'm honored. I've been invited to a small group to do that, and I'm going to have dinner with some friends. So I look at my magic is every day is an adventure, even if it's a bad day, even if there's somebody who's sick or dying or lost their job. Now that adventure that day is how do you make it better for them? How do you help them and support them? And I break all the rules. I just break the rules. I'm not a good rule follower. My adventure drives me. I don't want to hurt anyone. I don't want to go to jail for breaking rules, but I bend them pretty regularly.
Yeah, to I think the ultimate goal is to help to co-explore the world, the reality, and contribute to the advancement of learning, innovation, just help let curiosity lead the way.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the other piece, I started off and I said, I'm 73. And people go, oh, you don't look 73. Are you retired? I don't know what that would ever be to be retired. But I
Let's
think
retire
part of it
me.
is to own where you are. I have some friends who are 57 and they've retired, but they're owning it. That's their life. Mine is a difference. And I think we have to accept that medicine is going to keep many of us around a much longer time. And so we're going to have to play with, what does age do? How does it change our family responsibilities, our work opportunities, our economics? So, and that's part of the adventure too. So I like waking up and being a healthy and active 73-year-old man. So
I wanted to be able to live until I'm 100 and still active on this adventure.
why not? Why not? Absolutely, you could. Why not? You will.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Elliot. I hope that this morning adventure through this conversation is an enjoyable experience for you, a worthy experience for you, and good all the best lucks and blessings for the continued adventures that you're gonna have later in the day, traveling to Orlando and meeting cool people. It's my pleasure and honor to communicate with you today.
And thank you for having me on today. It was magic for me too. Thank you.